Books make you hope. Books make you dream. Books make you laugh. Books make you scream. This is the Books That Make You show, discussing books with authors and experts, unraveling the inner pages of all the books that help make us who we are.
Welcome, everybody. It's time for the Books That Make You show. I'm your host, Desiree Duffy, and we're talking about books that make you see the future as it pertains to live streaming and digital media, with artificial intelligence continuing to shape the success of almost every industry. We're welcoming back Ross Brand. The fourth volume in his series is a #1 Amazon bestseller in 7 different countries. In it, he spotlights predictions by an array of contributors, including Emmy winners, Hall of Fame podcasters, YouTube stars, industry executives, and even yours truly added some thoughts about how AI is impacting the world for writers. The book is a guide for anyone who does live streaming, podcasting, programs, and promoters on YouTube channels, or anyone who creates courses, business people, entrepreneurs. Really, it's for anyone who recognizes the importance of staying right there on the bleeding edge of technology. Ross Brand helps creators and entrepreneurs monetize their talent and expertise. Over the years, Ross has become a leading figure in live video and digital media spaces. He's been instrumental in the growth of platforms like StreamYard, which we happen to use. And he's been recognized as the world's #1 live streaming expert on social media by Clout. Now, Ross's first book, 100 Live Streaming and Digital Media Predictions in 2021, won several awards, including a BookFest Awards, which is how we actually connected. So, Ross, it's been quite an adventure with you. Welcome back to the show.
Well, thanks so much for having me. And it's exciting to be back. And I also very much appreciate you being a contributor to the book. As somebody who had me on a show, we connected in this sphere. So one thing that separates you from the other awards is you have a podcast and a radio show that you had me on. And thus, you were in the mix to be a contributor this year. And I was thrilled. I think getting the perspective of a writer and AI is just really, really important. And I think it's something we're all grappling with, whatever our profession is, whatever kind of work we do. And of course, writing, whether you're an author or you're in business or, I don't think anybody gets away with not writing at some point. And so where do we bring AI into the picture, and where do we stay true to our own voice, and how do we mix those things? There's so many issues right now going on. And that's what I'm really excited about with this book, is that I believe it's relevant to every industry. As you said, it may focus on digital media, but there's no industry that isn't going to face challenges on how to integrate AI and how to stay human and keep their own voice and their own values and principles at the forefront at the same time.
Yes, and thank you for saying that. That's one of the core messages that I continue to put out there, and the show continues to put out there, is how important it is to maintain that human component, especially, I think, writers, creatives, especially. Sometimes there's trepidation when we start talking about AI. There's confusion. There's a lot of misconceptions. There's a lot of fear that's impacted or packed around that.
Right.
And I think your book dispels a lot of those fears. Can you start, Ross? How about if you give us the lay of the land and just tell us in broad strokes about the book to begin?
Okay, so the book came out of a blog post that started in 2016, which I asked live streamers, podcasters, creators, social media folks, what their predictions were. It had a very strong focus on live streaming, but it was also across the digital sphere. And at that time, it was a question, what's going to happen when Facebook Live comes along? And people were talking about Periscope and Blab, and it was such a different online universe at that point. And so each year it got bigger, and I had more people involved, and it was kind of industry focused. If you weren't in the industry, or you weren't somebody who was pretty enthusiastic about the tools, I'd say you probably weren't likely to find my blog. And then in 2021, I moved it to a book form, because at that point, during the lockdowns, everybody had to learn how to go on Zoom and use certain digital media tools. Essentially, they're using the same skill sets that we use for live streaming and podcasting. They were just maybe using it in a business context. So all of a sudden it became relevant, I felt, to an audience beyond, enthusiasts and industry people. And the book was well received. So it convinced me, let's keep doing the book. And so, it reached a wider audience. But I think this year is another turning point, like 2016 and 2021, because now, if this was if this were the first book, right, and the series hadn't had an established name, this would probably be called 100 AI and digital media predictions, or 100 artificial intelligence predictions, because that is the issue that everybody is grappling with. And again, I think the book now appeals to a even wider audience now, because now it's not just people who need to use digital media tools in their work or who are in the industry, but it's every industry across the board is going to have to, face the opportunities and the challenges of dealing with AI. It can greatly enhance your productivity, but there are also ethical issues and accuracy issues and a lot of different things that even bigger issues on a societal level that we have to probably be aware of, at the least, if not have some safeguards in place. But that's where I think, the book, this specific book, is different than the others, is that there's a much heavier AI focus on so many of the predictions, regardless of whether the person's a live streamer, a podcaster, a course creator, an email marketer, a newsletter writer, whatever it is that they come at this from in the online world, e-commerce, wherever that is. They're dealing with these issues, and it's probably reflected in, I don't know, probably 70% maybe of the predictions, at least, probably touch on AI in some way.
Yeah. And again, thank you for inviting me to contribute. It was absolutely my pleasure to do that. And I think you're right. As you were talking, Ross, I just thought back. I've been taking a few deep dives just into history. You mentioned 2016, and you brought up some brand names that, in all honesty, they seem like they're from the dinosaur era. And that was less than 10 years ago. And less than 40 years ago, there were folks who said things like, the average human, the average household will never have the need for a home computer.
Right.
So you start thinking about, because you're talking about how industries, AI, in live streaming, and all of this, everything that you just talked about, impacts the everyday person. And so for the folks out there who might still be thinking, that's not within my industry, I don't need to learn about this, I think you're right. I just want to underscore, I think this is impacting everybody, everywhere, no matter what your industry happens to be right now.
Yeah, I mean, I think I certainly in the beginning said I want nothing to do with social media. I was a relative latecomer to it because I didn't even have a LinkedIn profile until the beginning of 2012. And then by that summer, I added Twitter and some of the other major ones, but I wasn't going to do Facebook. And then finally, by 2013, I was dragged kicking and screaming into Facebook. And then I realized, wow, these tools are kind of effective in some of the work that I'm doing. But I think you could sit out the social media thing. You certainly could sit out live streaming or podcasting or YouTube. But I don't think you can sit out the AI discussion because it's going to impact you pretty much no matter what your career is. I mean, unless you are thinking of retiring in the next year or so, then there's a chance maybe you can continue doing exactly what you're doing, and depending on what job you have. But otherwise, I think you have to reevaluate and say, how can I use this to help me be more productive in a marketplace in which everybody has these tools available? And then also, how can I rethink my work with this tool as a part of it? So if I'm somebody who's, I don't know, writing reports from scratch, and this gives me the ability to do reports in a third of the time or half of the time, I've got to consider using that, even if the writing of that report isn't exactly the way I always did it. So now how do I approach this? I have to think, how do I learn how to manage the tool and add value that way? And I think that's where the humans who are learning this are giving themselves a little bit of future proofing, right? Because if the time comes where this doesn't end up being a big impact on society, and I can't see how that could be, but if you spend some time learning it and it turns out you didn't need to, all right, that's one gamble that you lose, but you basically don't lose because you can continue doing what you're doing. But if this becomes a major part of how we live our lives, you want to get on the front side of this, and so that means learning how to, issue the right prompts for the work that you need to be done, and then how to edit and manage the weaknesses in the output, and also then add back in your personality, your life experiences, the things that ChatGPT or any other AI assistant wouldn't possibly know about you, your story, your feelings, your emotions, things that aren't there. So I think you have to learn to leverage the tool, and those that can manage the tool and improve upon the work of the tool are going to be the ones who I think have more opportunities going forward. But this is all speculation. This is what makes the book fun. We really don't know where this is going, but we know that it's going to make a huge impact, and that, the horse is out of the barn, so to speak. I don't think there's any going back on this. It's now just, where do we put the safeguards? How do we make sure that we're doing this in an ethical fashion and in a way that doesn't bring more harm than good to society?
Yeah. And okay, I do want to talk about some of the fears that people
Sure.
are feeling. I just want to thank you for pointing out that it is a tool, and it is so important to go back. If you are using Chat GPT or another large language model to write that report in your scenario, that's great. But then going back over it, making sure that it has your eyes. It's good for a rough draft a lot of times,
Right.
to kind of get the ideas out there, outlining, or maybe doing some research for you. But it never really should replace humans at this point. And I think that's part of the fear, is that it's going to replace jobs. It's going to replace certain functions that we do. What are your thoughts on some of those fears?
I don't think all those fears are misplaced, but I think, like I say, if your job, or you think your job, is in danger, then how do you kind of convert your job into managing this tool that's going to do the work that you were doing, right? Because AI at this point is only as good as the inputs and the information you feed it, and the output of it is only as good as the human who then reviews it and edits it, because you can't possibly just take what's on the page and copy it and paste it and put it out into the world without looking at it, because there will be inaccuracies, there will be mistakes, there will be some general things in there that just don't really make sense for the level of work you're doing. It's really good, and yet it's not good enough. And so how do you turn from being the one, putting the hammer on the nail, to being the one to supervise that it was set up safely and showing where the nail should go, and that kind of thing? A human still has to give the inputs and ask for the work. So get good at doing that, and then it's not replacing you, it's making your life easier. And again, it's easier said than done. If you're a solopreneur, you're an entrepreneur, you're a business owner, you have more leeway with this. If you're working for a company, I still think you should learn how to manage this technology so that you retain value over other people who are just kind of waiting for the other shoe to drop and be told we don't need you anymore. Those who are getting out in front of it, I think, are giving themselves a better chance to have a place in the future. And we're a long way away from the point where, humans aren't needed.
Exactly. And you bring up a really good point, because we talk about, we have folks that work for huge companies. We have huge companies out there. And then we have small teams, small businesses, or even solo creators. So when you're competing as a little guy against the big guy, it seems like such an unlevel playing field. Any thoughts on how small teams or solo creators can build their audiences, can compete? Are there any, in your book, are there any of the predictions that kind of give some of the smaller folks a little bit of a leg up?
Well, I think it was definitely mentioned in the book in a few places. Karen Glasser, who's a podcast live stream host, mentioned that there's a bit of a leveling effect, because it enables the small creator to be more productive. For instance, I just gave a talk at PodFest about how you can play bigger than your size by repurposing a video show recording or a live stream recording into many different kinds of pieces of content, and then distribute them to lots of different places. So even if somebody doesn't watch or listen to your show, they might read your newsletter, they might check out the blog post, they might see a social video that's short or a reel or a TikTok. They may watch a YouTube video that's essentially one topic that you covered out of a long interview. There's so many different touch points that you have with your audience. And I think that using these AI tools in order to quickly generate a lot of content from your work, and it's easiest if it's a solo show, because then you don't have to spend time identifying the speakers. But even if it's a one-on-one interview, it's pretty easy to turn that piece of content from that transcript, which now StreamYard and many of the podcast hosting companies will just give you, and a lot of times those transcripts are better than some of the companies that we've relied on for transcripts in the past. You can take that, you can drop it into ChatGPT. There's also tools that actually are set up so that they give you exactly, you just drop the transcript in and you've got 7 different pieces of content ready or whatever. But you can drop it in and ask for a 500-word blog post, a email newsletter, a tweet thread with 5 tweets, Instagram hashtags and caption, and and so forth. There's a lot of different things you can do with that content. There's also tools that you can upload the video and it'll convert it to vertical clips, and you can go down the list of clips that it makes, find one, and not have to go back through the video and mark the in time and the out time and all that. So yes, I think these tools can make people more competitive and save time, because a small creator just doesn't have the ability to churn out the volume of content that big media, big companies, and big tech do. And those three factors are working against your reach, your position in the algorithm, and so forth. So with so much content out there, I think becoming your fans, your followers, your audience, your community's addiction requires feeding them content on a regular basis. This is a way you can play bigger and have more content, when you don't have time to be doing a show every day because you still have your the rest of your business to run.
Yeah, exactly. Can you talk about, you mentioned some of the contributors already in the book. Can you talk about some of the other folks that have contributed? You have, I think, 113
Yeah, there's
total.
113 this year. So yeah, I mean, there's we have the people who wrote. I'll start with the people who wrote the foreword this year because they're also my co-hosts on the Stream Leader Report show that we do a live panel every Thursday afternoon, and or morning if you're in the West Coast, I guess, is 1:30 Eastern on Thursdays. And Rob Greenlee's a Hall of Fame podcaster. He's been an executive at many of the big companies that have played a role in podcasting through the years, and he's got a lot of insight on the history of the industry and the medium. And he's one of our panelists. He's very focused on AI. Claudia Santiago is another panelist. She is an international recording artist and a live streamer, content creator. And now she has a new luxury brand out. But she brings a lot of perspective of somebody who's traveling around and dealing with audiences and events in person, dealing with creatives, managing her band, and she brings a wonderful viewpoint. And then Rebecca Gunter is a marketing copywriter and kind of branding strategist for creators and businesses and so forth. So we have really we come to it from four different backgrounds, and it's a lot of fun discussing the issues of the day. So I will say that I love what they did with the forward. I love how supportive they've all been of the book this year. So I've got to mention them. Some of the other people I'll mention, Mitch Jackson is an attorney. He's an award-winning trial lawyer out in California. He's been in all 9 editions, all 5 blog posts, and all 4 books since this started. Jennifer Quinn, is the first guest I ever had on a live stream show. She's been in all 9. And the artist formerly known as Coach Jenny, now she goes by her full name, Jenny Mustafa Julak. She's been in all 9, and she was one of the few people, the only in this year's book, I don't know, one of the few that I knew before I started live streaming and all this stuff, because she was a speaker at an event that I put together a few years before, but she's been in all 9. So I have to mention those 3 because it means a lot that they do this. They've done this every single year and contributed predictions.
And that just speaks to having your tribe,
Yes.
your network, and growing it, because look at what you've been able to do. You're creating these books, and very much like you're mentioning, speaking at events with them, doing your own podcast, newsletters, and all of these other things. When you find your tribe like that, and you have people that you grown with, who have been with you from the beginning, and then you have folks that kind of come along the way. It just really is a testament to the growth and the success that one can obtain by, doing it the way that you are. So
Well,
congratulations on
thanks.
all of that.
Yeah, and it's a great way to stay in touch with your network too, because we don't always get around to sending a note and checking in and things like that. And this gives me something every year where I, I assume people are happy to get the email. More so now. I think the book's successful than in the past. Maybe the first few years is like, all right, I'll do this because Ross is asking or whatever. He came on my show or I was on his show. But I think now that the book has had a fair amount of success, people are excited to be included and look forward to seeing their chapter and also seeing the other predictions when it comes out. But we have people who've been in it like 6 years in a row, 8 years in a row. And then we have a lot of new people in it. And of course, the more I do this and the more people who've been part of it, the more people there are to ask. So it really does come down to who wants to do it at that point. Because in the beginning years, I was chasing people and stuff. And now it's like I just put out the call for submissions, and it's great. And I think people have also adapted to the idea of thinking of a chapter more than thinking I'm writing a prediction, like a 1-line or 2-line prediction. They've just naturally over the last few years seen, oh, this chapter's an opportunity, right? I can express myself, and also it's a chapter. So let me mention my prediction, but also let me back it up with some of my experiences or some analysis of the industry or some actionable advice. And so I think, and I'm not saying this to sell the book, I'm saying it because I really believe it. I think the quality of the contributions this year are better than by far than any year in the past, because I think people have started to think in terms of chapter and not a prediction.
The quality of the book is amazing. And I mean, I feel like I'm a little bit, self-grandiose here because I'm part of that. So I don't want to make it sound like that, but I've read through the book and it is amazing. And it's advice that, again, it goes back to just about anybody can find something in there that they're going to find actionable or interesting or something that pertains to their industry. So I really think that you nailed it, Ross.
Well, thank you.
One of the things that I want to touch on
Sure.
is self-care. Could we talk about creator self-care a little bit?
Absolutely. When I was at Podfest, I was also on a panel talking about this issue. And I think a couple of years ago, I did a show where I invited probably about 7 people on, had rotating panelists. And I said, I titled it Creators Need to Take Breaks. And, it's the idea there are things that we talk about and then there's things that we don't talk about because everybody wants to appear like they're hustling and working hard and they're impervious to whatever physical, mental challenges. Look, being a creator is a tough existence in a lot of ways. It's a very rewarding existence in a lot of ways. It's energizing, it's inspiring, it's liberating. But it also, and you see this especially with YouTubers who get big, there's a demand. The audience, kind of captures you and you feel, okay, I'm delivering the show every week or every twice a week or creating a video or a podcast. And now I need to keep doing this. And you build up a workflow around it, and then you have to, and sometimes you have to step back and go, a lot of this is self-directed. I made the decision that I need to do 8 blog posts a month to go with my podcast, or I made the decision that I have to tweet every day about my last show and for 3 or 4 days, and then start tweeting about the next show. And let me take a look. Am I getting any mileage out of these tweets, or can I drop this? Am I getting any mileage out of this? Or do I need to set my schedule so that, 1 month a year, I don't do anything online? Like I put the phone in the drawer and, walk along the beach, or, find a quiet park to go sit and read a book in, and not be online. What do I need to do so that if I want this to be a sustainable career, how do I manage this? Is it a problem in a digital world to not be online every day, or not be online for a month or two or a season or what have you? How can I manage keeping my feet in the everyday world and taking care of my own mental and physical health? Because it's a challenge. I mean, I'm an introvert, right? So the lights go on, and I you can't stop me from talking, right? But once the show ends, I need to go in a quiet room and sit down and not have anybody talk to me for a little bit, and decompress and whatever, and then I'm back to myself, and now I'm ready to host another show or go on another show. But I need that time. But I think I also need it in a more macro sense, where I need to take a few weeks, and it's easy not to, because you always can feel like you're falling behind, or you're going to hurt your business if you do. So I think this is something we should be talking about more, and probably people need to consider: is this really a lifestyle, a business, a career that they want to be a part of, or would be better off making a hobby from it, and working a job that doesn't bring so much angst and staring at the blank page and wondering what they're going to produce today. And maybe you need a job that's a little more routine, and then on the weekend you write your blog post, or you host your show. I don't know what the answer is. I just think we have to have the discussion. And I think AI is great in the sense that it's one way, without spending a lot of money, you can offload some of those tasks, so that you can focus on what makes you competitive, which is the thing that you are doing, right? So if you're a podcast host, what's important is how you host the show, not so much is your tweet perfect, or your blog post maybe that's not the area you're competing on. So offload that, and have something created, and then you can edit it. But focus on what you do best. Focus on why you have an audience that's interested in you, and then all the other things that you do to sort of you're supposed to do as part of doing a podcast. Let's say offload them, outsource them, hire somebody else, like whatever you can do to lessen the amount of pressures. I mean, when I worked in radio, I wasn't running the business at the same time. I wasn't,
Right.
cutting the promos. I wasn't doing all these different things. I didn't have any
Exactly.
idea how the technology worked. So it's you're not just a creator. You're everything from the bookkeeper to the CEO, and you've got to figure out all these different areas that
Yep.
people in radio and television have not had to deal with. They're either in sales, and every day they go out and sell, or they're talent, and every day they are focused on their show or their news report or their special or what have you. And then there are people who do promotions and engineering and all these different areas. So
Exactly.
it's a very, very
Yes.
different world. It's a world
Yes.
where there's opportunity, right? I couldn't be
Yep.
doing this from home 15 years ago. To have the gear, to have basically a broadcast quality studio in your home was
I know,
unheard of,
right?
right?
Exactly.
But with that comes, I don't have the team in my home that I would have if I worked for a radio station or
Yeah,
television
yeah. Ross,
studio.
this is such great advice. The book is amazing. I highly suggest that people grab themselves a copy. Can you let folks know where they can go to find out more about you, find the book, follow you online? Give us your details.
Yeah, livestreamuniverse.com is the website. That's the best place to find what I'm up to. And then livestreamuniverse.com/books is the page where you can find out more information about my books. And there's links depending on where you want to shop for those books. That's up to you. But I'd love it if people checked out livestreamuniverse.com. And also, most of my videos these days are on YouTube, so you can find me at youtube.com/livestreamuniverse.
Fantastic. Ross Brand, thank you so much for being with us today on the Books That Make You show.
Thanks so much for having me. It's always a joy to talk with you, Desiree.
You bet. And thank you, everybody, for being here with us as well. You can find out more about us on our website. It's booksthatmakeyou.com. You can also follow us on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and of course on YouTube. Make sure you ring the bell, subscribe. Make sure you never miss a Books That Make You show. You can also subscribe to our Webby Award-winning newsletter on the Books That Make You site. And that way, every week or every month, delivered directly to your inbox will be great shows like this one and lots of other fabulous bookish information. Until next time, all of my bookish buddies, please enjoy all of the books that make you exactly who you are.
The host and executive producer of the Books That Make You show is Desiree Duffy. Sound mastering and engineering by Dave Napox. Social media and content promotion by Siddhi Jahagirdar. Copywriting and editing by Mike Robinson. The Books That Make You show